Gather round, dads, it's time for a tale. Hand me a book and a warm pint of ale. Let's discuss writing and the literary gods with Dan Roberts on the Dadlit Pod.
Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who know that sometimes it's just not going to be perfect. Unlike my guest, who is a dad and whose name is Evan Kidwell. Evan began his writing journey after a leadership conference in 2023. There, he publicly committed to writing and publishing a book within a year. That moment of accountability became the catalyst for his debut novel. He's raised in Claremont, California, and now living in the Pacific Northwest with his wife and three children. Evan grew up turning to fantasy novels as an escape from childhood bullying, with a vivid imagination and books and characters as a refuge. He has been telling expansive stories since childhood. His debut novel, Timeaous Spark and the Luck Curse, is inspired by those early influences and a dream that stayed with him for years. The novel is geared towards teens, highlighting how resilience and strong character can redefine one's path. Evan, how are you?
Daniel, I'm well. Thank you for having me.
This is an interesting story um, that you decided at a leadership conference. Where was this leadership conference? And was it associated with the group Nexium? And did they blackmail you into writing the book?
Yeah, so first of all, this leadership conference was for the world of insurance. My background is in the world of insurance, not in
Ooh.
fantasy writing. And I was at a
Well, not exactly fantasy writing.
right, exactly. Yeah, true that. So yeah, I was at a leadership conference. It was, top 400 people in our firm going to this event. And the keynote from stage got up on stage. It was the last day. So, we had 3 days of learning and it was a great event and we're in a beautiful place on the beach, right? And he gets up on stage and he goes, I want everyone to, we're going to do mine a little bit differently. So first and foremost, everyone needs to pull out a piece of paper. I don't want it to be your phones. I don't want to see you typing on your computer. I want you to pull out a physical piece of paper. There was papers on the table so that we could do this assignment. And he says, I want everyone to write down something that they want to accomplish next year that scares them and excites them, but it needs to be the same thing that they want to accomplish in 2024. And so I thought about it for a second. I was like, I'd love to write my book. That was for me. That was for nobody else. There was no accountability to that whatsoever. And then he says, okay, everyone raised their hands. We've got something on our papers and everything. And he goes, okay, great. So he points right at me and he says, you've got something on your paper, right? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, great, come up on stage. His whole keynote presentation was grilling me on why I wanted to write this book, the fantasy book. And at first it was funny because I got up on stage and I announced I wanted to write this book. And he goes, oh, so like a finance book, an insurance book. And I was like, no, fantasy, like what I grew up on, right? And then I had, to your point, the blackmail. I had over 400 of my peers now throughout the year being like, hey, how's your book coming? Hey, you said you're going to write a book. Is that happening? Right. And so there was a almost built-in forced accountability to that as well.
Hmm.
And I think one of my peers said it best when I got off the stage. He said, you know what this means, right? And I was like, what? He goes, you can't show up at the same event next year without a book. Like it's not going to go well for you. So,
No, it won't.
so I was like, you know what? Not only are you right, but now I have a reason to fulfill. I've got to stay accountable to what I said I was going to do from stage, and so I just reverse engineered it a little bit. I got a writing coach, and then I reverse engineered it. Like, when do I need to have each step done by in order to accomplish getting a book done in a year? And as a dad, I think that we can all relate to that a little bit because, my kids are still young, but, we still have jujitsu lessons that we have to go to and doctor's appointments and all of these things. And I still have to juggle work. And so figuring out when you're going to do those things is super important. And so I just did it when my kids would go to bed and I'd sit down in front of my computer and write for 2 to 3 hours each night after my kids were already in bed. So It is a able like we're capable of doing those kinds of things if we set our minds to it. But I think the big key there was that forced accountability, the blackmailing of are you going to get your book done, and then announcing it to more than just my immediate family that I was trying to accomplish it. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is a tale as old as time, which is this underlying challenge of one of the things that I think I've noticed when I've done this podcast is that the people who are actively dads and are doing it usually set about it with a sense of strong personal accountability
Mhm.
that there's only one way I'm going to make it happen, and that's if I actually do it. And so that's crazy exciting. And so you got a writing coach. How'd your writing coach help you?
Yeah, so he helped me in so many different ways. First and foremost, my parents were actually really excited about my announcing of this book, and so they hired this writing coach for me. I took a class from him. That's how it started. He has 17 novels out. They're all in the mystery vein. They're not in the young adult
Hmm.
fantasy, but he's local to us, and we'd meet for class once a month. But what I found myself doing was emailing and communicating with him more than just the once a month our class was. And so there were a couple things, like really key pieces of advice that he gave right out of the gate that really
Hmm.
helped me with my journey. And one of those was he said, "Hey, look, if you really want to write a book by the end of the year, and not only just by the end of the year, by October, because that's when the next event was, right?" He goes, "There's some things you're going to have to learn along the way, but the first thing you have to learn is you don't write a book without writing a book." And
Hmm.
some people could go, "Yeah, that's pretty basic, right, from an advice standpoint." But what he meant when he explained it, he goes, people think that something like writing a book just happens by accident. It doesn't. And your first draft is probably going to be awful, right? That's what editors are for, right? You're probably not going to submit your first draft for, final approval. It's okay to edit later, but just sit down and write. And he did say early on, he said in the class, he said, if you have a story that's living in your head that doesn't exist in the universe, right, then you're probably the one meant to write it. So, just sit down and write a little bit every day, even when you don't feel like it. Well, guess what? I do that for work every day, right? Well,
Hmm.
not every day, but you know what I mean. There's days where I just don't feel like it. I still have to get up and do it, right? So that was really good advice for me to hear, because then I was like, okay, I'm not in the mood. I don't care. I'm going to sit down and write just a little bit every day. And I personally had a goal of like, okay, I need to do like 750,000, not 750,000, 750 words per day. Gosh, man, I'm writing a whole series
750,000.
every day.
You
That's
could be machine. We call you the
the
machine.
machine. So, yeah. So usually I would get to about 2,500 to 3,000 words a day. Sometimes I had 750 days. Sometimes I had 1,000 days from a word count perspective. But the goal was never how many words did I get. It was let me sit down and write a little bit every day. What that also did was it created this creative engine, right? Like as I was writing, there were times where like, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do this with this character, right? And so the once you get those creative juices flowing, it's actually harder to stop them, right? So
Hmm.
so there were times where I went to bed, I was like, oh, I gotta get that on paper, but I'm really tired and like I'm falling asleep now, but I'll work on that scene tomorrow, right? So that was really good. And then he also I think there was a point in time, two different points in time where I got stuck, right? And one of them was I was getting feedback from all these different sources, people I care about, cute people I respect and trust. Oh, you should have this in your book. You should have this in your book. You should do this. You should do that. And like everyone has an idea for you. And I was getting stuck on that a little bit. And he and my wife both gave me the advice of, look, do what's right for your book, but at the end of the day, it's your book, right? Like make it what you want it to be, not what everybody else wants it to be. Although I wrote from a philosophy of would I, the author, want to read this book? Because I was a reader first. So anything that ended up in my book was from that perspective of would I have wanted to read this? And the other piece of advice he gave me, I remember there was a point in time where I was really struggling with um, I I wanted that my book to be one of those books where the kids learn on campus, live on campus, right? Like similar to like a Harry Potter vibe from that perspective. But I initially started writing it of they were commuting to and from school. And the reason I did that is because my thought went to, well, I don't want people thinking that I'm doing what Harry Potter did. So it's got to be
Hmm.
different than what Harry Potter did. So what's different? You still have to go to school. Okay, you commute. Well, first of all, there's no excitement in commuting to and from school. There's no drama, and not unless you end up in like an accident every day, right? Like, and so it wasn't adding value to my book. And I remember him saying, first of all, you've got to change your mindset on that because everything that's been done has been done. Like, I mean, there are books where kids commute to school and there are books where kids live on campus. There's only really two ways that goes, right? From a school
Hmm.
perspective, right? And so he goes, so you if it's right for your book, don't plagiarize certainly, but if it's right for your book, it's the right feel, it's the right vibe, right? You're building the right environment, then be okay with them doing school on campus. That's okay. That's allowed. You're allowed to do that. And so it really unlocked me from feeling like, oh no, somebody's going to think that, there's it's just like this. No, it's not anything like it. It's completely different worlds. It's a completely different vision. There's completely different magic structure in my book than anything else, right? And so being okay with those changes or with the way the story flows, the way I need it to flow, and not getting so stuck and paralyzed in the, oh, well, I can't introduce magic because magic's been done. Or I can't, like you could get very paralyzed very quickly trying to think of I'll call it the most original idea on the planet that doesn't exist ever. It just
Hmm.
nowadays with how many books are out there, there's always some component of magic or hierarchies or, and so you're not unique. Every idea in your book does not need to be unique and new and with its own language attached to it. Although I did do that too, right? So anyways, that was super helpful along the way to just allow my creative process to be what it was and not get so focused on these little details that don't actually matter from not only a reader's perspective but even an authorship perspective. So
Yeah, I think a lot of people deal with that. That's sort of the with the Simpsons did it problem that South Park pointed
right,
out.
right,
And well, yeah, the Simpsons have done everything.
everything.
So, yeah, like, okay, the Simpsons did it. Okay, yeah, sure. No, I had this problem with the current thing I'm working on, which is a a horror novel set or a horror thriller set in a high school.
Okay.
And it's a horror thriller set in a public high school, so it's always going to kind of sound like Carrie in some parts. It's
Yeah,
not told from the
understood.
same perspective as Carrie. It's not told from the same, it's not the same idea as Carrie. It's not any
Right,
of those things. But if you have a character who is a teenage girl in a high school, Carrie's a teenage book about a teenage girl in a high school,
right,
right?
right.
Like
Yep.
there's like nothing you can do about that. That's always like the Hermione problem where it's like, oh, well, you have a girl who's super competent in your book, and then
Right.
it's like, oh, you're the Hermione, you're doing the Hermione thing, and it's like there are a lot of super competent girls who have been in books throughout the years. Girls just naturally being a little more cautious, a little more careful, a little more studious, just in general. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a thing that every teacher points out.
Right.
So I completely get that. Plus, JK didn't make up the British schooling system,
No,
the British
definitely
private
not.
schooling system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, but anyway, so you sat down, you did it.
Mhm.
Who was your biggest cheerleader for this project outside of the 400 people who were going to, basically razz you if you didn't do it? Who is that big cheerleader who kept you going?
Well, is it going to sound corny if I say it's my wife, right? Like that she's definitely
No,
one of my
that
biggest
sounds normal.
cheerleaders.
That's my
Okay,
cheerleader.
okay. It's right. So my wife has a unique perspective on my writing journey. First of all, she was so supportive all the way throughout, and she's never
Hmm.
stopped being supportive. But she also said, "Hey, look, I don't like to read, so I'm never going to read your book unless it turns into a movie." But she was still probably my biggest cheerleader.
That's great.
She takes on the kids when I go to book events, right? And it's just
Hmm.
me at the book events and she's dealing with the kids, and so she is my rock. She's the one that grounded me when there were times when I was struggling with I'm getting so much feedback and she's like, "Hey, stop listening to everybody else. Like
Hmm.
I know your imagination. I'm sure you have a great story. Stop listening to everybody else, right? Trust your
Yep.
gut." And so, anyways, she's obviously been my biggest cheerleader. We are about to celebrate 10 years of marriage.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Nice.
very exciting. And but I will say I did have some other people that came alongside me in this journey. My father put up the initial seed money for the actual publishing of the book, the hybrid model, all that kind of stuff. So that
Hmm.
was super helpful. Probably wouldn't have been able to do it without his help in that way. And then they're also the ones that got me that writing coach, right? So my parents. And then I do have to give a shout out to somebody. Her name is Amanda, actually. And when I was having a conversation with her, she works in the same industry as me in the world of insurance. And she actually said, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but I actually have a background in creative writing. So if you
Hmm.
want to bounce ideas off of me, I'm more than happy to basically be your art creator." And she didn't care that I'd give her spoilers. So there were times where I would describe what I was trying to do long term in the series as well as short term in the moment. And I was able to then have a sounding board of somebody who actually understood that world, likes fantasy, all that kind of stuff. That was so helpful because I knew what I was trying to accomplish, and then I was able to bounce the ideas off of somebody else. And sometimes she'd be like, "No, don't do that. That's going to kind of wreck what has already been." And I give her two or three chapters at a time, and she'd read through them, and she'd give me feedback on the characters, the development, like, "Hey, I want to see more of this character. I think this character is really strong in your book," and that kind of stuff. So, and then certainly the editing process, the editing team that I hired was fantastic. They identified a lot of different things that we needed to change and tweak. We ended up editing out of the final manuscript over 20,000 words out, just because it
Hmm.
wasn't helping my book, it wasn't moving it forward. So between those individuals, those would be the biggest supporters of my book was, my wife, my parents, and then Amanda from our industry as well. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
That's nice to have a team.
yeah, exactly right.
Yes, I do something similar with my best friend and my wife, and they're generally the first people to read anything I do. Believe it or not, the one book I ever published, my wife still hasn't read, so I can also empathize with you in that regard. She reads all the fiction ones. She won't read the actual one I've published. I think she's just doing it to spite me at this point. But yes,
But just because they don't read it doesn't mean they're not supporting you in other ways, is
this is
my point,
true. This
right?
is
So
true.
you can have a lot of support without somebody reading your book. So
Yes. So tell me about your book.
sure, sure. So I have a flawed society hierarchy system that sits in my book. It's a way for the government to control the people. And there was almost a civil war 30 years ago in my book. And their way of solving that was to create this trial system. The trial system is, think of it as like almost torture. They put the students through this trial system, much like a Hunger Games almost, as a way to unlock their hidden powers or their hidden abilities.
Hmm.
Once they unlock those hidden powers, it automatically classifies them into where they sit in society, what jobs they can have, who they can interact with, all of these things, kind of like how a divergent would feel a little bit. So the powers that my characters unlock are not actually as important as where they land in that flawed society hierarchy system.
Yeah.
There's a lot of magic themed things in my book. So the powers that my students have that they unlock come from mythical beings of old. Mythical beings of old, a long time ago, gave their powers to humans, right? And then humans genetically actually pass those powers along the way. So just because the I'll call it the magic theme in my book is the mythical beings could also bless places or things with their powers, not just people. So that's where you'll see a lot of the magical places in my book and those kinds of things. So I have magic and technology and powers kind of blended into one world. And my hero starts out as a powerless individual, destined to a life of servitude based on his standings. And his goal is to unlock a power so that he can kind of get himself out of that.
Hmm.
Only to find pretty quickly that the power he unlocked is considered very dangerous to society. So he now
Ooh.
has to make a choice of do I let society know that I've got this power, increase my standing, be selfish with it in that way, or follow my mentor's advice and keep it hidden, but stay stuck in a life of servitude. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. What's your protagonist's name?
Timaeus. Timaeus is my main character.
Oh,
Yeah.
to me. Well, that now makes sense. Yes. And so is this the first in a series?
It is a first in the series. It does also stand alone. I make that very clear because I'll get people that come up to me at shows and they'll be like, "Oh, it's a series. Oh, I don't want to buy your book because I want to wait for the whole series to be done before I buy your book." And it's like, actually, I did something similar to how Harry Potter works in that way, where each book will finalize itself at the end of the book, so it can stand on its own. But it also heavily hints that there's going to be a next in the series as well. So it is a series. I Based on what's in my head right now, I am envisioning it's going to be a 6 or 7 book series. I already have the next two mapped out. I'm working on number two right now, but yes, it is
Hmm.
a series for sure.
Oh, great. And how many words does it come out at?
Yeah, so the first book came out at 105,000 words.
Oh, it's a chunky book.
It's a, it doesn't look chunky, right? Like
What
it's,
does it look? Show it to
well,
me.
it's a 6 by 9, so it doesn't look super chunky, right?
Yes.
It's but it's 6 by 9, so yeah, it is a
Yes.
bit of a chunker. So
Yes. Well, that's fun. And so you've created this stratified society. You
yeah,
place someone in a sort of position where they learn to be a moral person against sort of privilege and ability is what I'm hearing.
yes, that's exactly right. Yeah,
Oh, well, that's a terrific theme for a series,
thank you.
particularly when you're going to have them contest some sort of evil regime.
Yep,
Uh,
yep,
so, what books when you're not writing,
yeah,
what books are you working on?
yeah. So
Like, what are you
you mean like when
reading?
I'm reading personally?
Yeah, when you're
So,
reading,
so
when your wife is sitting there, when your wife is sitting there judging you for
So first of all,
reading
I am a total
books.
nerd. So video games, books, movies, that's like how I
Yes.
recharge. Okay. So I'm a total introvert from that perspective. That's how I recharge my batteries. So you'll either find me doing one of those three things often when I'm not dealing with my
Hmm.
kids and my other responsibilities, like when they're in bed and I'm not writing, I'll be doing one of those things, right? So actually, books I've read a lot of books. But right now, I'm actually working through. So when I go to shows, I'll meet other authors. And if their books sound intriguing, I'll actually start working through their books, right? So that's what I'm
Hmm.
doing right now. I just recently got done with a really fantastic series, more in the romantasy space. I'm not a huge romantasy reader myself, but I really liked her intrigue of what she was telling her books were about. That was the North Queen series. So there's three in the trilogy there, and then two in a prequel.
Yeah, who's that by?
That's by Nicola Tyche. So
Hmm.
that was a fantastic series that I just finished. and it, no spoilers, right? But it was a really fun read. And then there's a series I'm going through right now from actually both of these authors I met at the Portland Fan Expo back in January. But he has a number of books to his name, and the author's name is Brendan Noble. And so he has kind of a fantastical, magical, epic fantasy, two different series that I'm working through as well. So, and I'm gonna blank on the name of the first book that I'm working through. Crimson Court, I think is what it's called.
Oh,
So yeah, so I'm,
interesting.
I'm going through those right now. Growing up as a kid, I loved the Harry Potter series. I was a huge, huge fan of Animorphs.
Oh, Animorphs
There's like
ruled.
rule, right? Thank you, thank
Yes.
you. I'll tell people they're like Animorphs. That's a weird. No, no, it was really good actually, and
The
there was like
covers were
60 books.
weird. The
They
covers
were.
were very weird.
But you know what? Who cares, right? Like at the
Yes.
end of the day, the writing was awesome, and there's like 60 books in that series and everything. So big fan of that. But I think my most inspirational author that I take inspiration from is actually Christopher Paolini, who did the
Hmm.
Aragon series. So
Oh, okay.
fantastic series. The movie does not do it any justice whatsoever. The
Hmm.
series itself was one of the best series I've ever read. And then of course your typical like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and all of those came into play into influences growing up as a kid as well. So yeah, I'm actively working on those projects right now from a reading perspective. I
Hmm.
probably read a lot more than I should, but I love to read, so
No, I think it's so important to read. I took a long time off
hmm
from fiction reading, and when I started writing, I came back to reading fiction.
hmm
And I have to say, I learned so much, um, not just about writing by reading other people's fiction, uh, but about people and what people are interested in, what people um, really find appealing and what inspires them to do something. Which is why your story is really interesting, because of course, not everyone goes to an insurance leadership conference and, and comes out wanting to write a YA novel. That's and and fundamentally, I think you're in the boat with a lot of dads who have this real desire to sit down and to take time and to participate in like a an element of creative expression, and that it brings it, and it's a thing that you want to share with people, and you want to you know be amongst, and you have something to say and you want to put it out there. So you
certainly.
you do mention that you had a concern about bullying, and that a lot
hmm
of this book was inspired by wanting to overcome that.
hmm
So to that extent, how does the book approach bullying, and how does it
hmm
approach um, uh, contending with those sorts of challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, very first scene in my book is he's getting the crap beaten out of him, right? Like
Hmm.
I just start right from there. And I bring in different facets of bullying into my book. It is a parallel reality. I have had that question asked before. It's relevant because people go, "Can you enter it from our world?" No, but there is a
Yeah, it
lot
doesn't
of
sound like you'd want
similarities.
to.
You know, maybe not want to. Well, the cool idea of unlocking powers, maybe, right?
Yeah, but yeah,
But
it's like
so,
there's like a tyrannical government,
right.
and
So
if you don't do something cool, you have to be a servant to
that's
everybody.
right. Yes.
Yes.
So think about it this way though. There are levels of bullying. There's individual bullying, like I'm picking
Hmm.
on you because you're smaller, you're bigger, whatever it might be. I don't feel good about myself, so I'm picking on you. That's individual bullying, right? there's group bullying, like, hey, well, we've got more numbers, so like, you're the underdog, right? And but then there's also like governmental bullying, like that's a thing. And so I turned
Hmm.
my government into a bully, right? And
Hmm.
if you don't follow what we want you to follow, if you don't do what we want you to do, there will be consequences, right?
Hmm.
So power is used as a tool often, even in today's society, as a way of bullying others into an oppressive state, right? And
Hmm.
so I highlight a lot of those different kinds of bullying in my book, and I think at the end of the day, we as adults can usually recognize, for the most part, when bullying is happening. Okay,
Hmm.
kids, I know as a kid, I genuinely got to the point where I just assumed I wasn't good enough, right? Like
Hmm.
I wasn't an all-star athlete. Like I was not the rock star athlete until I got to high school and then I wrestled and I did really good in wrestling. But then the bullying changed there too, right? Then my wrestling team became my bullies, right? So at the end of the day, I wanted to, yes, put that into my book because it's a very real thing that happens. And it may not happen to everybody, but it happens enough that I think a lot of people can relate to it. Um,
Hmm.
and even if they can't relate to it, they can recognize it when it's happening, right? That's important to stand up for when you see somebody that is getting bullied. Like stand up for them, right? I have a big heart for standing up when I see that happening in the world. And so, but I also wanted to not just leave it at that. Bullying happens. Okay,
Hmm.
that doesn't actually drive anybody to progress forward, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So, my title is Timaeus Spark and the Luck Curse. Well, I was really trying to figure out how do you turn resilience into a superpower, right? Like how does that work? Well, effectively, Luck Curse, the without giving too many spoilers, right? My main hero's power that he unlocks is something of a yin and yang kind of power. It's a balancing of the scales. However, what it feels to him is like all the bad luck seems to happen to him, right?
Hmm.
And so, um, but how do you overcome that? How do you become resilient? How do you develop that? And I had to learn really early on as a kid what that looked like for me, right? How do I
Hmm.
overcome it? How do I not let their bullying get to me? How do I not let it affect me the way I'm an emotional person, right? Like genuinely, for a guy, I'm very emotional. My wife says it all the time, but she says it not like it's a jab, like it's a good thing, like you're in tune with your emotions because like it means you relate to people then, right? And
Hmm.
so, how do you turn something like that, like empathy, into a way to overcome, I'll call it bad life circumstances that might happen to you, not just bullying, right?
Hmm.
Every one of us has faced things in our life that nobody should ever face. And some people that's more extreme than others. But the point is, if you just stay in it, if you just stay stuck in it, you stay stuck in it. That is an option. I just don't, for me, like it as an option for me. And it's how do I learn from
Hmm.
it? How do I move forward from it? How do I grow from it? And so, even when you make mistakes, and so that is really central theme to my book is how do I equip readers, young readers, to learn these lessons through my words whether or not they're experiencing those same things I experienced. So it wasn't just bullying in my book for bullying's sake. It was bullying so I can equip kids and youth and even adults on how do you overcome it in your own life? How do you overcome your own trials that you're going through personally? That's why the trials are so pivotal in my book too. So.
Yeah, well, that's a terrific lesson, I think. I'm going to let the book to help people overcome it. To if you're looking to overcome that in your life and develop some resilience, go out there and get the book, folks. So you are also a dad
Yep.
of three.
Three kiddos. Yep. My world is very chaotic from a dad perspective.
Yes,
7, 4, and 8 months. So, my 7-year-old
seven,
is in
4, and 8
second grade.
months.
He's a little ahead, and he's
Yes.
got a little engineer brain, and he loves Legos. I mean, he'll do the 18 plus Lego sets, right? The
Yep.
ones with the little tiny itty bitty pieces, and he'll do them and knock them out himself. And so he's my little engineer. And my 4-year old is, they say terrible twos. We didn't experience that with our 4-year old, but is there a saying of terrible fours? I don't know, because she has hit a sass phase, man. Like everything is no, everything is defiant, everything is,
Yeah.
I don't want to. That's not how I want to do it. So she's definitely keeping us busy. And then our 8-month-old, she is just all smiles all the time, right?
Well,
So,
that's
which
great.
is so endearing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so have you read from the book to your 7-year-old yet?
Not yet. So it's a really good question. I think he's still a little premature for my book.
Hmm.
I didn't keep so one of the things I did on purpose is I didn't dumb down the language in my book
Hmm.
for the high school kids. If you want to learn a word, go look it up, you can do that, right? Like
Hmm.
I remember there were books I read as a kid, as a teenager, where I felt dumbed down too. Like, well, I got to dumb
Yeah.
this down because you're a junior higher. And I thought of myself as a pretty smart junior higher or high schooler. So don't dumb it down for me. Like I can figure it out. Right. And so
Yep.
I didn't do that, but I also didn't avoid harsh topics like bullying or like a tragedy hitting your world and things like that because that happens. That happens in junior high and high school as an adult. Right. So
Hmm.
I think at this stage he might be a little premature for it. He's still reading at like third, fourth grade level. So maybe in a year or two, it would be appropriate for me to read to him or let him read it. I mean, he could read it, no problem. He
Yeah.
might struggle on names like Timaeus, but outside of that, he could read it. So, and I also want to see if he's got an interest in something like fantasy, because at this point, I can't tell if he does, right? He might
Hmm.
be more of the nonfiction, how do things work kind of kid, right? Than a fantasy world. So, I'm not going to force my book onto my kids just because I wrote a book, right? Just like I wouldn't force them into an activity that they don't want to be doing. My wife and I have a rule for our kids. If you pick an activity, you finish out that activity. You're not going to quit on that activity, but you don't have to do that same activity the next year. So we run our household that way too. So if he doesn't show an interest, I'm not going to force him to read my book. No, that's a bully move, right? Like so yeah, but no, not yet anyways.
Yeah. What sort of activities do your kids like to do?
Yeah, so my son is into jujitsu right now. He had done it for a bit, got away from it. He started back up again, so he's really liking that. But realistically, I mean, he would love to just build Lego. He likes to build
Hmm.
Lego. He likes to make slime. He likes science projects, right? Like those are the kinds of things that he likes to do. Well, I say both. My third kid is 8 months, so she's not going or
Yeah,
doing
just
anything yet.
yeah, her
She really
activity is
likes
eating.
mom and eating right now,
Yeah.
right? So. Um, but my 7-year old and both 7 and 4-year old love to go out to the park, love to play. I mean, their favorite activity is probably going to like those I'll call it trampoline type parks, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be. It could be like the Jungle Gym version, and we'll go there and they'll just literally just run around all day. They love those places, right? So that's probably their favorite activity. But my son loves going to the movies with us too. So like we'll go to the movies, the all the Disney stuff that comes out and everything. And they love it because like I mean, I will let them when we go to the movie eat a whole bag of candy. They think it's great, right? Sorry, I was playing with something and I dropped it. Sorry about that. So that's my ADHD thing. I've got to, play with something, do with something, tinker with something as I'm talking to people. So,
Well,
so
that's good for book writing.
yeah, it's great. It's great for book writing. Exactly right.
Yes.
So, because I
Yes.
can hyperfixate. Like, there are pros and cons to that. Because then when I'm hyperfixated and I'm writing, my wife will be like, "Hey, Evan," I'm like, "I don't like I can't. I'm not. It's not. I can't hear her." And finally, she'll be like, "Ah," and I'm like, "Oh, were you talking to me?" So yeah, no, it can definitely serve great purpose for book writing from that perspective for sure. So.
So, what would you offer as sort of advice
Mhm.
for someone who has that desire to sit down and to go through and to commit and to write a book, whether it's a YA book or any other book, what would you say is the way to go, and
Well,
how to get that done?
first of all, I'm going to give you the same advice that my coach gave me. And the first piece
Mhm.
is if you have a book in your head that doesn't exist in the world, you are likely the one that's meant to write it. So take
Yep.
some encouragement in that. Know that your first draft, your second draft, your third draft, maybe your 16th draft might not be the end product. It is
Mhm.
okay to edit on the back end. Um, I struggled with that a little bit in the beginning too because I wanted it to be perfect from the beginning, right? And my coach gave me that same advice. He says, "Look, it's not going to be perfect in the beginning. It's probably going to be trash in the very beginning, and you have an editor for that. You'll hire an editor who will go through and they'll give you content editing. And editing is so much more than just, oh, the period's not in the right spot, the comma's not in the right spot. Although that's helpful too, don't get me wrong. Editing for me was, hey, this whole section, like this whole chapter needs to go. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what? Like I fell in love with it. Like, what do you mean? Like this, I love this. And they're like, no, it's awful. Right? Get rid of it.
Well,
Slash it out, right? And they gave me some really good advice. They said, look, if it doesn't add to your book, it doesn't add value, if it drags on, like those are not the things you want your readers feeling, right? So
yeah.
these things, get rid of them. And I was like, okay, fine. And I think the other piece of advice I would give is if you don't know what you're doing on these things, take advice from the people who have done it, who have gone through that process, who've gone through the editing process, because I took it from a lens of I've never written a book. So these other people who I've hired to be on my team clearly know something I don't. So I'm just going to listen to them, right? And there were times where I didn't because it just didn't feel right. It's like, no, I did that purposely because you can't see it, but I've got something happening in book three that I need to bring it forward. So maybe it felt like but it became more of like an
Mhm.
Easter egg. So trust your gut. Trust your team, whatever that team looks like, whoever you have on your team, and sit down and write if that is something that is in your head. So,
Right. So pitch your book, tell the dad literati what it's about, who it's for, and why they should pick up a copy.
well, first and foremost, I am a young adult fantasy author. This book is meant for young adults. I have adults that read them too, but really, this is now the pitch to dads. I'm a dad
Mhm.
as well. So here's the deal, and this is probably the number one point of contention I get in the literary world, but not in the parent world. And that is the number one question I'll get because they see fantasy is there any spice? Is there any smut? Those kinds of things. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
Zero, right? Because
One
I'm a dad.
hopes.
I would not want my son reading any of that kind of content. I wanted it to be safe for kids. I wanted it to teach them a good lesson
Yeah.
as far as how to overcome things, which is important in life in general. And I wanted it to appeal to that fantasy reader, somebody who just loves picking up a fantasy book and getting lost in the fantasy, right? So
Mhm.
those are my dad pitches. This is a high school setting. There is no smut, there is no spice, which does work to my advantage when I'm talking to parents, does not work to my advantage when I'm talking to someone who that's all they want, right? So it's like, oh, that's not me. Go somewhere else. I like not mine. So that's probably the biggest pitch I have is it is completely kid friendly, young adult. That's what it was meant for was young adult. So I didn't try to sneak any sort of hidden agenda in there. This is meant for young adult enjoyment. So
It's the- it's a good agenda.
it's a
It's
good
not,
agenda.
yeah,
That's
it's a
right.
good agenda.
Exactly. That's right.
It's about resilience, folks.
That's right.
So, Evan, thank you again. By the
Of
way,
course.
Evan on the cover of his book is known as E.K. Kidwell
Yes,
because,
correct.
as J.K. Rowling explained to us all, when we sort of disappear with the numerals, people don't know to think anything about us other than that we're serious author types. And I've done the same. Well, if I ever publish my book, it'll be the same way. And the
And my
book
initials
is
are EK because I have had that question come up. Oh, were you trying to be like J.K. Rowling? No, my initials are actually EK Kidwell.
yes,
So yeah.
yes. And by the way, if you were going to change it, you'd change it to like rolling or or Raxling with an X. So it would be
Wrestling.
Raxling, EK
Oh.
Raxling. Is that that's Timaeus Spark and the Luck Curse by EK Kidwell. And where can they get it?
They can get it on pretty much anywhere. So it can you can get it on Amazon. That's the first place that most people look. The other
Yes.
thing that people don't realize about the literary world is us as authors will put it in kind of all the places. Well, that's no different for me. So I do have some advice if you're ever looking to also support your local bookstores. Go
Yep.
ask for it from your local bookstore. They can get it into their local bookstore through all those normal channels they would normally go through. So you could certainly do it that way. But Amazon, your local bookstore, but you'll have to ask for it. Like barnesandnoble.com, right? They're on all of those places. And if you want to follow me on social media, I go by Evan underscore Kidwell underscore author on Instagram. And same thing for I think with Facebook it didn't allow me to do the underscore, so it's just Evan Kidwell author, right? So you can follow me in those ways. My website is timaeusspark.com.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Evan.
Thank you.
Our time together has come to an end. It's time to return to your wife, kids, and friends. It's time to pick up those books you forgot while you wait for the next Dad Lit Pod.